good friends are here. And hello, Circular family. We are still like 2 minutes short. Some of the beautiful community members are here. Tokyo, Mastadi, Gokun, Andres, Kavindo. Hey, beautiful faces here. So guys, today our very own David Cutler, he is the co-founder of Circular Protocol. He's going to host the AMA today. And myself, Adil, I'm going to listen and I'm going to learn all about RWAs and tokenization and where we are heading next. So, Mike is over to you, David. Please continue.
We are very excited about this particular AMA because we don't have to listen to Gianluca De Novi, our visionary leader, who is finally on vacation after a year trapped in his laboratory designing Circular for all of us. So we can applaud him because he's not here and he does well-deserved vacation. Do we have like some kind of clapping or other kind of excitement?
Of course.
You. All right. So do we have is Frank and Shaun? Are you guys on the line?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Fantastic.
Okay? Just checking. My audio is coming through okay?
Yeah, you sound great.
Great.
Hey, Frank, we got you?
Thank you, David. I'm here.
Excellent. So just so everyone knows, that's Frank Pagano, co-founder. He and I have a long-term conversation we haven't had enough of about AI and blockchain being used together. So hold your hats for that one. And of course, Shaun Ogilvy, another co-founder, chief product officer. So, and then Adil, who's running marketing. We have a cross-section of our company. So this is a great chance to ask some really important questions, which we have a bunch of them here. And I'm going to, without further ado, does anyone want to say anything before we get started?
No, I think you can jump straight in.
Great. Let me start with Francesco. Do you see real world asset, we'll call them RWA tokenization, as a passing fad or a lasting trend? Pretty basic question.
Thank you, Dave. And what I'm going to try to do is to do short answers, and then Shaun, feel free to chip in. Same for Adil and Dave. So my take on this is, as a B2C business, it is for sure in need of more clarification. So it didn't go through. As a B2B enterprise initiative, so real-world asset tokenization is something that is here to stay, especially in the world of luxury, collectibles, and especially industrial. So let me pause.
Yeah, great. Excellent. Shaun, that sets us up that the opportunity is huge. You and I talked earlier today about total addressable markets and those kinds of size of markets that we're going for. Are you thinking that there are particular markets that make more sense for us? I'm just riffing a little bit off topic because what Frank just said was that there are big opportunities, and where do you see them going?
Sure. Great question. Look, I think everyone's pretty familiar with the use cases around real estate. That seems to be the one that's garnering the most attention. BlackRock have committed to tokenizing a lot of their real estate portfolio. People, I think Frank just mentioned sort of art and sort of like, what would you call, like expensive assets, essentially. I think one thing I'll touch on definitely later in this call that I would bring up as well is intellectual property. I think that's, in my mind, potentially the most transformative space that real-world assets can touch, and really provide some sort of clarity and just transparency into intellectual property and how that's going to change things on chain.
Well, that's a great reference. Some of the biggest companies in the world, like Disney, make majority of their income from intellectual property. So obviously, there's lots of models that we'll be building into this next Web3 phase of the internet. I'm going to jump into Shaun again. If you can answer this question about, will tokenization impact sectors beyond real estate? Right. So you're talking about that, and I'm talking about others like media and hospitality. What is Circular doing to prepare for those other industries?
Great question. So, like I mentioned, I think that the impact of tokenization on intellectual property is personally the most exciting to me. And I think it's definitely going to transform how we trade and invest in creative works. What this means, I mean, I think probably everyone on this call is relatively familiar with the concept of tokenization. But Essentially, it's just breaking down these intangible assets. So this could be, music, patents, or copyrights into digital tokens that represent a fraction of their value. This is very cool because it opens up a whole bunch of new possibilities to both the creators and the investors. I'll give an example. So my wife's a musician, so we'll take music, for example. Traditionally, an artist's revenue comes from streaming, album sales, live performances, and typically this was kept by the artist and also, the agency or the
label.
The label, exactly, the label. And in this case, with tokenization, artists can issue tokens representing a share of future earnings, and fans and investors can purchase these, which effectively grants them an ownership of this artist's success. So I think this is really cool. It allows, the ability for artists to connect with their fans more closely, and also, fans that can discover artists early can also share in the upside of an artist's growth. And if you're someone like me, who when I find a new artist, I share it amongst all my friends, and I'm able to obviously capture some of that upside as well. I think the same thing here applies to patents and other forms of IP. So, inventors can tokenize their patents, creating tokens that represent a portion of this patent's value of future earnings. So this makes licensing, trading, and crowdfunding of new inventions easier, and gives investors stake in these groundbreaking technologies without having to have access to large amounts of capital. I think just generally the implication is pretty profound, and I think it's just going to create a much more dynamic and inclusive financial ecosystem, whilst also really advancing creativity and invention too.
That's a great answer, because it really opens up the door to what we are here for at Circular. It's about this co-ownership economy. I mean, it sounds cute. It sounds like a real interesting term, but we're building the tools to actually allow it to happen, which is, I'm really proud to be talking to you guys about this co-ownership economy, fractional ownership, and all that. But I want to go back to Frank and ask you about financial institutions and how serious are they about RWA tokens? The tests and things that you might think that they're doing. What can you share about that huge marketplace?
It is huge, Dave. So for financial institutions, differently from what you said, Shaun, it's really de-tokenization of physical assets for the moment in order to provide a product, for example, for wealth managers. Let's do an example. Signum Bank tokenized a Picasso, La Fille Beret, and broke it down into 3,000 pieces. The actual painting is in custody with the bank, while 3,000 individuals or family offices can invest in a piece of art that will appreciate with time. So what you do with blockchain is you break down a physical asset and you give the possibility of higher access to investors. There's another case, for example, another wealth manager called VP Bank. They manage assets worth probably $30 billion between Liechtenstein and Switzerland. They tokenize a vast series of assets like precious cars or real estate, castles, and the dynamics is still the same. You tokenize the asset, you break it down, and you give it as a possibility, as a target investment to wealth managers. So is this widespread in the financial world? Not yet. So we're just the beginning of the, let's say, of this curve for financial institutions.
Yeah.
So, but this is the tokenization of physical assets. Different, you can tokenize also financial assets or securities, but I think it's a bigger game, a phygital world where actually you protect digitally something that is physical.
I think we have to drink. If anyone says the word phygital, we have to drink whatever you have in front of you. Have a drink because someone said the word phygital.
I've grappa, Dave.
So you're talking, Frank, that was great because we're really building new methods for ownership and distribution. Again, a big statement. Can you bring that back to what Circular is doing and how blockchains, layer ones like Circular can benefit from RWA tokens?
Yeah, for sure. I think I'll give the marketing sales answer, and Shaun, please feel free to jump in from a product perspective. I think L1 become fundamental. So the fundamental tech infrastructure, if you want to broaden the access to, let's say, assets like collectible luxuries, investment vehicles. But the same thing goes for industrial. So industrial companies, Siemens has a digital twin, so tokenizes all the factories, all the industrial lines. So you need a tech infrastructure that can manage scale and can be compelling and competitive in terms of cost per movement, per transaction. And the third bit is it needs to be interoperable with other blockchain, because it needs to speak, for example, across regions. So all of those three elements we tick with Circular. But maybe, Shaun, I'm not, I'm more of a sales and communication person. I'm not a product person. Feel free to jump in.
Sure. I mean, just in terms of what Circular is doing, so I would defer to the token standard we have, CIRX 323. If anyone's sort of curious and wants more details, we can reach out to us and we'll share links to the CIRX documentation. Essentially, the CIRX 323 is a token standard designed for the simple tokenization of these assets. And what this means, it doesn't require complex smart contracts. That's not to say that certain tokenization of real world assets doesn't require more complex functionality with smart contracts. I think what we do differently is we also enable the ability to create these without this complex interaction. One thing I would say is that one of the important components of CIRX 323 is it mandates that tokens include a URL linking to a legal deed or documentation, so ensuring a clear connection between the digital token and the physical asset itself, so to confirm the ownership and authenticity. Just to sort of recap here, I think generally when you look across all the different ecosystems out there that develop or produce support for RWAs, I think they're more or less very, very similar. And they integrate all the essential functionalities into this standard. But yeah, I think what's maybe set Circular apart would be the straightforward management of these RWAs in a more secure and transparent manner without requiring the complex smart contracts functionalities as well.
So we need a more, back to you, Frank, we need a marketable name than CIRX 323. If we're going to simplify it, then we can't have a funky techie name like that. So we'll get back to you on that branding, right?
Sounds good, Dave. You're totally right. It's all about how we communicate and make it simple, but not even to the public, even to bankers or professionals. They really like it simple. So you're totally spot on.
Yeah, maybe it's a tree to tree or something. We'll work with, sharding trees or something like that. We'll wordsmith that later. But let's get back into some of these questions that we've been asked and we've decided are really good ones that kind of fit into this storyline as we're including these tools and functions for these aspirational agendas to happen. I mean, we're really at the kind of the bleeding edge and trying to do it right. So Frank, let's talk about some of the kind of meat and potatoes of this whole thing. How will gas fees have, what impact will gas fees have on transactions, especially, cost concern on layer ones? Tell us a little bit about how we're going to market with this and making, and kind of living up to the circular name where it's regenerative and sharing and more complete. Can you talk a little bit about gas fees specifically and more of the big picture and how we're going to market?
Yeah, for sure. The big picture for the moment, because we're at the beginning of this revolution. So for sure, I think gas fees are not the number one concern, especially for sectors or industries like finance or luxury collectibles. When it comes to industrial and when you roll it out and you need to put on a public registry, so all transactions that do take place, for example, an industrial line belonging to Bosch or Siemens, then gas fees become fundamental. So the blockchain has to be made for business because we're talking thousands of transactions per second. So it's exactly, I think, what we've done. And again, Shaun, please correct me. I think there's multiple velocities that really can please clients, whether you are a bank that in need of a few transactions per day, or you are a big industrial group that runs thousands of transactions every single day. And the other thing is the security of the overall infrastructure in both cases. So whether you're a bank or a big industrial group, you need that. And I think we cover all of those bases because the blockchain is made for sure to please those who do, infrequent transactions for the wealthy, and those who actually need an infrastructure for daily business, and they mean business every single day, every single minute. I think we have on the other side, I think for the community, the fair compensation of the approvers and all the mechanics that we put in place allow the community to be really an ally, either you're a financial institution or a big industrial group. Again, Shaun, please correct me if I'm wrong on.
No, I think you made some great points. I would just, in terms of gas fees, the other sort of party or stakeholder here that's worth mentioning is the developers themselves. So it's something we've talked about over the last couple of AMAs here. But one of the unique, value propositions of Circular's gas fee structure is that we directly incentivize the developers who deploy the smart contracts, right? So by allocating the percentage of the transaction fees that are generated from these contracts back to them. So, this is incredibly important for sort of crowdsourcing efficiency and ensuring high performance of smart contracts. There are certain mechanics that I won't go into too much detail because it's not the topic of today around how these gas fees are calculated and allocated. I defer to the white paper if anyone's curious there. But I think this is something that's really important because it's really going to push builders in this space to actually build solutions in this specific sector, knowing that they can actually get sort of recurring revenues based on this unique gas system we have.
So as they're building for their clients, they're also building their own business, and that's kind of a wish that we've had for decades in our career. And now we have the tool set to actually provide that incentive for our partners. I think that's really, really exciting. So Shaun, continue on a little bit of this, but more from how Circular is planning to attract projects for tokenization. What are we doing about those incentives? And for our conversation earlier today about the business model supporting our partners.
Great question. So I would say, just broadly speaking, we're aiming to attract projects in the tokenization space through a multi-pronged strategy. So the first one would be the upcoming grant program. So this is sort of loosely slated for Q4 2024, possibly Q1 2025. This is really aimed at funding builders creating RWA products and tokenization products and solutions on top of Circular. So a way that we can support builders in this space. This is really designed to provide the financial support and resources to promising projects and builders that align with our vision of how Circular can support these kind of applications. In addition to the grant program, the team at Circular Labs is also developing some pilot dApps to demonstrate our architecture's unique suitability for these use cases. These pilot projects that are currently ongoing will showcase the potential of Circular's architecture and how it can be leveraged in real-world scenarios. Some of these might be spun off into products or companies on their own, but I think this is going to be sort of an important sort of mechanism to show the real world use cases that can be built on top of our technology. So that would be the second that I'd point to.
Yeah, there's a plan for us to be able to have an ecosystem of our partners and developers, whether it's in-house at companies that we've talked about earlier in this conversation, or independent dev shops, even marketing agencies who want the tool sets to be able to fulfill on the vision that is growing across the industry. And if you're listening on this call and you know people in that kind of agency, kind of services space, have them reach out to us, because we want to spotlight them. We want to hear about them. So again, this is about a very specific topic, but I can't help but ask this group that's listening now to share with their ecosystem and invite them in so we can all kind of do this stuff together. So thank you for that reminder. So I'm going to move on and kind of ask Francesco kind of another one of those hard questions that he's so good at answering is, what regions are leading in this real world asset revolution we're talking about?
Yes, Dave. So again, like a sort of a helicopter view. So the grand scheme of things, if you take real estate and land, according to the World Bank, 30% of the global surface is actually mapped, or let alone digitized. So if you take strategic industries like construction, development, and real estate. So in terms of regions, probably the highest penetration will be in Asia Pacific. So where there's the most urgent need to map and to track, and regions where blockchains in general and crypto are very highly penetrated, like GCC, the Middle East, and Switzerland. So I think these are the regions and the areas where we will see this develop faster.
So that's great. Thank you. You were, Shaun, you were in Dubai in our last big event. How's that region showing its colors in this area?
I mean, Dubai's fantastic. I'll be the first to admit that I'm not super well versed on sort of Dubai's role specifically within the RWA space. What I can say is that, Dubai is rapidly positioning itself as a key hub for meaningful blockchain adoption across like various sectors. I do believe that Dubai's progressive regulatory environment, growing real estate sector, and obviously the location itself makes it an ideal place for real world asset implementation initiatives. I think in terms of like tangible examples, I don't have too many I can think of, but I'd point to, I believe it was Mantra's collaboration with a Dubai-based real estate group, I forget the name, who have committed to tokenizing something like $500 million in real estate assets. I think this is like a great example of their commitment to integrating blockchain technology into important businesses and infrastructure sectors, showing they're really a leader in this space, for sure.
Very, very cool. So I want to take it to a kind of a fun question, and same question to both of you. So Shaun, first, leaving out your spoiling of your daughter, what types of RWAs would you want to tokenize first? A ring, some gold, a share in an apartment, those kinds of things. Where's your feeling that this will take off and we should focus our community attention on? I mean, this is just your gut.
I mean, you mean me personally? I think as like someone who's looking to buy an engagement ring in the next year or so, probably the ring. Hopefully my wife doesn't, sell it if things go south due to,
This is a whole new conversation. This is a whole different conversation now.
Different conversation, yeah. No, but I would say maybe a ring. I think a ring, but probably more realistically, I think real estate is obviously something that's like very interesting to be able to have access, fractionalized ownership in assets that I couldn't personally afford at this point in my life. That sounds quite interesting.
Yeah, cool.
So maybe Shaun, you can mandate in the code of the token that if she sells it, you get the money back.
Yeah, I'll get Gianluca to look over that smart contract a couple of times before I hand over the ring.
Secondary sales of marriages. Yeah, I get that. I think the world's ready for that. But I'm going to ask you, Francesco, the same thing. But I'm also going to give you a twist. Where do you think this thing is going from our real world assets? The ring, the apartment, the gold, whatever. But also, you feel free to throw in a little bit of your point of view on how this incredibly growing AI universe of content and pattern recognition and desperately needs blockchain as a management system. Do you think those two things can be shoved into the answer to this question about what you think RWAs are going?
Yeah, for sure. I'll give you my point of view. Again, two strategic industries like real estate and mobility, so automotive, for example, and maybe a little spin on the token that you can create. I think of a car. So, for example, the human first car made by Renault presented last year. Or think of apartments that maybe are owned by one entity and used by multiple users. In that case, I think what we're going to see is a token or a digital alter ego of the physical property that dynamically changes with usage, recording the usage information. That protects the asset and actually captures the relevant information that secures a residual certified value when the property need to change hands. So I think it's going to be real estate, mobility, big physical infrastructure belonging to governments. This is the place, the sweet spot, where where a token of a real world asset, not only static but dynamic, will find its perfect use case. And again, 70% of the assets out there are not digitized and tokenized. So the market for this is immense. We don't even have enough blockchain computational power to cover that. So we need to federate all the blockchains. And so I think the market opportunity here is humongous, is immense. And of course, I mean, if you want to tokenize a Rolex or a ring, I think there's a use case for that. But the big money opportunity to protect both the assets and the users is in all the assets that dynamically change over time.
So you mentioned Renault, and in the United States here they have this VIN number, vehicle identification number, that's on every car. You can track, if it's been in an accident or who owned it. That scenario is mandated by standards from the government, right? It's not privately owned. This is a whole separate set of almost like patents, like we were talking about earlier, Shaun. Where do you see the breaks? I mean, is this something that the government has to come around to? Where do these innovators and people on this call are in our universe? Innovators are building these things, and us. Where are we looking? Are we looking banging on? Do we have to get lobbyists and work on that end, or is it just getting the Renaults of the world to kind of push it into their world, complying to regulation, but still pushing new markets? I'm kind of asking you both where we should be putting our attention, either government standards or innovation. Hell with them, and we're going to go do it anyway.
Yeah, I think from an industrial point of view, from an enterprise point of view, there's a shift already happening from property to rent. So basically today, globally, a car has a life of 36 months, and people tend to bring it back to where they bought it, be it Volkswagen, Stellantis, Renault. So it's already happening. And manufacturers, big companies are already moving into a system that guarantees the residual value when users return, for example, their vehicle. So it is actually already happening behind.
So the circular economy that we're even talking about is already happening.
Is already happening. The difference versus the current system is when data is, let's say, recorded on a decentralized registry or ledger like blockchain, everyone is protected. So you remember, Dave, Volkswagen was able to tweak and massage the data on some of their diesel vehicles, for example, in Europe. Big scandal that took place in the US especially. So now that wouldn't be possible. So actually, manufacturer is protected, user is protected, not only the current user, but also all future users. So that's really exactly the circularity of it.
I think that's fantastic. In that situation, that's great. I'm really glad you brought that up. In that situation with Volkswagen, because I was working with some people on that, at the company, it was about pressure from management to the internal statisticians to fudge and change those numbers. And you can't get away with that pressure beyond the law. And it's kind of, it protects not only the consumer, but it protects the employee. So it's a whole different level of kind of like how AI is being used internally at FAQs and intranets and stuff like that. Now, I'm glad you brought that up, because it's not just a consumer, it's an employee and B2B thing. Absolutely,
Dave. Just one note on this. It's exactly what you're saying. So today we come from 15 years of private equity driven, for example, by 3G. So the shareholders' room actually dictates what companies do. Now, if we introduce the element of blockchain, and I'm going to say it in very marketing-like jargon, so management is protected because they're going to make choices as if their kids were in the room. So now, if your family is in the room, because the big family, the big community is watching, what choices are you going to make? You're going to do the right thing because you're exposed.
You are a marketer.
Yeah, I think just building on what Frank said, I tend to agree that it's most likely going to be top down. I think that businesses, sectors, and industries are gonna see the benefit in this, the protection that they get, increased liquidity, all the things we've already discussed today. Chris Dixon has a really fantastic analogy that I love, and I parrot it often, which is that blockchains are like steel. They don't necessarily solve any one singular problem, but they just represent a better primitive to build with, as opposed to wood or something like this. And I think we're starting to see, large businesses and industries acknowledge this, and hence the move towards tokenization of assets. And I think we've already started to see it with BlackRock and their real estate portfolio. I think Frank's got a bunch of other examples he can point to, but I think we're just starting to see, this is really going to blow up, and it's probably going to be, I would say, one of the big narratives pushing into the next cycle, and even through likely the bear market. We're going to start to see much more institutional adoption of these kind of assets.
Well, we are at the right place at the right time, and it's a great way to kind of tie up this fantastic conversation. I appreciate it. Adil, would you share the latest marketing updates and upcoming exchange listings for CIRX?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dave. Can you guys hear me properly?
Yep.
Awesome. I was having a great time, listening to all of you guys, and this was totally entertaining. Not just educational, but entertaining for sure. So
we're here for you, man. We're here for you, man.
So, Shaun, brother, we have a question from Tokyo-Circular. The same question, but there's a confusion around hypercode IDE. People want to know how to use it, etc., etc. Obviously, Gianluca is not here, but if you can explain it in 2 minutes, that what exactly is hypercode IDE, and how people can develop smart contracts on that.
Sure. So hypercode IDE is, as the name suggests, it's a web-based IDE. I mean, some of the developers out there might be more familiar with sort of a desktop app, or if they're using Visual Studio or something. It's something that we've developed to be very similar to these kind of platforms, so that there's no steep learning curve there. Essentially, this represents a great entry point into the circular ecosystem, specifically around the smart contract standards, access to libraries, and some boilerplate code that allows you to essentially get started and sort of build from there. Look, I think one thing, we'll be releasing a blog or a series of posts touching on hypercode in the coming week, I believe, Adil. If we haven't planned that, we should. And there is definitely an understanding there that it needs some tender love and care. So it's something we'll be prioritizing over the coming weeks. If anyone has any specific technical questions or usability questions, if you're not in the Circular Developer channel, please jump in there. All of the technical founders and some of the builders and who are already building in our ecosystem are very active in this channel. And just ask your questions there, and Gianluca or myself can answer it directly.
That's great. So one thing I realized yesterday, that RWA tokenization is still a new thing, a fancy thing for a lot of people. So that's why the community is asking questions about the ecosystem, not specifically about RWA. So one thing that we were discussing yesterday about bear markets, and community members were asking questions. So Francesco, bro, if you can just share with people, obviously most of us are learners here, what exactly happened with the market last week? 20% down, now 15% up. So what are the macroeconomics behind it? Anything you want to share? Thank you.
No, for sure, Adil. I wish I could answer that with certainty and say that markets are rational and there's something specific driving what is happening. It's not like that. So, and the whole movement of behavioral economics shows that sometimes markets react in a very irrational way. Look, I think the best position is really to be in for the long term and to make sure blockchain is used for business and to solve real life problems in life. That's the only suggestion that I would say.
It's our reaction to it. Like Churchill said, you have nothing to fear but fear itself. Let's hold all this wonderful conversation and these opportunities we have, stick to it, and we're going to win in the long term.
That's a great answer. Yeah. So, Shaun, if you can hear me, bro, one thing, a lot of people in the community, they have been asking questions about hiring. most of them are developers, some of them are community moderators, etc., etc. So one guy from Bangladesh, Shakil, his name is Shakil, so he's very interested in joining Circular Protocol as community moderator. So I told this guy that you guys need to be here, learn about us, and after that we are going to have interviews and everything. So if you can just share, obviously we are going to hire from the community, but if you can just share some steps, and when we are going to open to hiring for developers and other marketers.
Sure. So look, Circular is currently undergoing our seed round of fundraising, which we're aiming to close sometime in the next couple of months, after which we will definitely be using some of that capital to expand the team. It's something that you've heard us repeat in several channels, is that we're looking to hire from within the community. So whether that's marketers or community managers or people who have been very active and already familiar with the ecosystem, that's one route. If you're a developer, of course, we're going to take all kinds of applications, but we definitely have a preference towards those who are already familiar with our ecosystem, with our contract standards, the differences between us and sort of the Ethereum ecosystem or Solana ecosystem. So I would say if you're looking to come on as a developer, there is definitely an advantage to starting to experiment. So maybe creating some little proof of concept applications, developing some stuff on top of us, which sort of can demonstrate that you're familiar with our ecosystem, and I think that'll put you in a really strong position to sort of be ahead of the crowd when it comes to applying. That's all I'll say at this point in time. I wish I knew more. That's kind of, I guess, it.
Then stay tuned to this channel to find out more.
That's great. Guys, one thing that we were restructuring community channels and everything, and Franklin already told you guys that we are gonna go live with different campaigns in the coming days, and it's going to be on platforms like Galaxy, Z, etc., and we are going to pay the winners of different campaigns hopefully soon. We were just running through our restructuring process. So, Shola, bro, if you have any question, please speak.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
Great to have you.
I hope you all can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I've been seeing what you guys have been doing so far, and it's commendable. Throughout the community, I know we partake in the Zilli contest and everything. We are now blended with everything that's happening in the space, especially circular protocol ecosystem, and it's a very nice and as.
Did we lose him?
I think we lost Shola for a second.
Oh, he was just getting good. Does anyone catch the drift of where he was headed? Maybe.
Hello,
Sure.
Here he is. He's back.
Yeah, we can hear you. Please ask your question, brother.
Okay, I just want to say that because the last time I asked a question about ambassadors, at least to get this space, at least
We lost you again, Shola, unfortunately.
What were you talking about? Ambassadors? Is that partners?
Ambassador program, I guess.
Yeah, maybe. Well, we'll have to get him a better line. He'll be our first ambassador.
Yeah, Shola, look, it's you're dropping in and out. It seems like right as you're about to ask the question, unfortunately. So what I would suggest is reach out to Adil or Franklin or someone from the managing the community already. Ask your question there, and we'll make sure that we get back to you on it. Okay.
So I think we're going to tie this up now. Adil, do you have any notes you want to add to what's going on next?
Nothing from my side, David. Shaun, I'm going to take questions from Shola, and after that, I'm going to send it to you, and we are going to answer your question, Shola. David, you can wrap this up now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. Let's keep building.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone, for participating. It's a lot of fun. Appreciate it. Look forward to the next. See you soon.
Ciao.
Bye.
See you soon, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great day.